Maya Chen had always believed her biggest problem was choosing between vanilla or chocolate ice cream at the campus cafeteria. At 22, she was a simple art student at Seoul National University, living in a tiny studio apartment that smelled faintly of paint and instant noodles. Her days were filled with charcoal sketches, oil paintings, and dreams of someday having her artwork displayed in a real gallery. She had moved to Seoul 2 years ago from a small town in America, drawn by a scholarship and her fascination with Korean culture. Her Korean wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to navigate daily life and make a few friends. Maya kept to herself mostly, preferring the company of her paintbrushes to crowded parties or social gatherings. That Tuesday morning started like any other. Maya rushed across campus, her art supplies bouncing in her worn backpack, already 10 minutes late for Professor Kim's painting class. She barely noticed the sleek black cars parked outside the art building, or the men in expensive suits standing near the entrance. Her focus was entirely on not dropping her wet canvas as she hurried up the stairs. The classroom was buzzing with nervous energy when she slipped inside. Students were whispering among themselves, stealing glances toward the back corner where someone new sat. Maya found her usual spot near the window and began setting up her easel, still oblivious to the attention the newcomer was attracting. "Class, we have a new student joining us today," Professor Kim announced, his voice carrying an unusual tension. "Please welcome Lee Soo-jin." Maya looked up from her palette and felt her breath catch. The girl sitting in the back corner was stunning in a way that seemed almost unreal. Long, silky black hair framed a face that belonged on magazine covers. Her clothes were simple but clearly expensive, a cream-colored sweater that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent, paired with perfectly fitted jeans. But what struck Maya most were her eyes. They were beautiful, yes, but there was something guarded about them, like she was constantly watching for danger. Soo-jin gave a polite nod to the class but said nothing. Maya noticed how she chose the seat with the best view of both the door and the windows. It seemed like an odd choice for an art student. As Professor Kim began the lesson on color theory, Maya found herself stealing glances at the new girl. There was something magnetic about her presence, but also something that made Maya's instincts whisper warnings. The way Soo-jin held herself, the careful way she observed everyone in the room, the expensive watch on her wrist. It all seemed out of place in their humble art class. During the break, Maya was mixing colors on her palette when a shadow fell across her workspace. She looked up to find Soo-jin standing beside her easel, studying Maya's half-finished painting of the Seoul skyline. "You capture the loneliness of the city well," Soo-jin said in perfect English, her voice soft but confident. "Most people paint Seoul as bright and bustling, but you see the isolation between the buildings." Maya was surprised by the observation. "Thank you. I didn't expect anyone to notice that." "I notice many things others miss," Soo-jin replied, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I'm Soo-jin, and you're Maya Chen, the American exchange student who paints alone in the gardens every Thursday afternoon." A chill ran down Maya's spine. How did this girl know her schedule? "Have we met before?" "No, but I've seen your work around campus. You're talented." Soo-jin's eyes seemed to be studying Maya's face as carefully as Maya studied her subjects. "Would you like to have coffee sometime? I'd love to see more of your paintings." Maya hesitated. Something about this girl set off alarm bells, but she couldn't pinpoint what it was. Maybe it was the way Soo-jin's eyes never quite relaxed, always alert, or how she stood with perfect posture, like she'd been trained to be constantly ready for action. But there was also something genuinely appealing about her, an intelligence and depth that Maya rarely encountered in her fellow students. "Sure," Maya heard herself saying. "I know a quiet place near campus." "Perfect. Tomorrow at 3? Soo-jin's smile brightened, and for a moment she looked like any other college student excited about making a new friend. As Sujin walked back to her seat, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just agreed to something much more significant than coffee. She tried to focus on her painting for the rest of class, but her eyes kept drifting to the mysterious new student who seemed to command attention without even trying. After class, Maya packed her supplies slowly, watching as Sujin left the building. Through the window, she saw the girl approach one of the black cars she'd noticed earlier. A man in a suit opened the door for her, bowing slightly as she got in. Maya frowned. What kind of college student had a chauffeur? That evening in her small apartment, Maya tried to research Sujin online but found nothing. No social media profiles, no academic records, nothing. It was as if Lee Sujin didn't exist digitally. Maya told herself she was being paranoid. Maybe Sujin was just private, or maybe she used a different name online. But as Maya lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the girl's piercing gaze and the way she'd known Maya's schedule. She'd grown up watching too many movies about dangerous people hiding in plain sight, and something about Sujin felt like it belonged in one of those films. The next afternoon, Maya arrived at the small cafe 5 minutes early, choosing a table near the window where she could people watch while she waited. Seoul's streets were busy with the usual mix of students, office workers, and tourists. Everything seemed normal and safe. Sujin arrived precisely at 3, looking effortlessly elegant in a black coat and designer boots. She ordered green tea while Maya stuck with her usual coffee, and for the first few minutes, their conversation was pleasantly ordinary. They talked about art, about Maya's adjustment to life in Seoul, about favorite movies and books. "You're not like the other exchange students," Sujin observed, stirring honey into her tea. "Most of them travel in groups, take pictures everywhere, treat Korea like a theme park, but you seem to really see this place." "I've always been better with places than people," Maya admitted. "Cities have personalities, and Seoul's is complex, beautiful but hard to understand sometimes." "Like some people," Sujin said, and there was something in her tone that made Maya look up sharply. Their eyes met across the small table, and Maya felt that same electric tension she'd experienced in class. Sujin was studying her again, with that intense, evaluating gaze. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said, setting down her coffee cup. "Yesterday you knew my schedule, and I've never seen you around campus before. How did you know where I'd be on Thursdays?" Sujin was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could see her weighing her words carefully. "I asked around about you. You're more well-known than you think. The quiet American girl who paints beautiful, melancholy pictures." It was a reasonable explanation. But something in Sujin's eyes suggested there was more to it. Maya decided not to push further. Maybe she was overthinking things. Maybe she'd watched too many thriller movies and was seeing mystery where there was just a shy girl trying to make friends. They spent the next hour talking about everything and nothing. Sujin was intelligent and well-read, with opinions about art and literature that showed real depth of thought. She spoke 3 languages fluently and had traveled extensively, though she was vague about the details of her trips. When Maya asked about her family, Sujin's expression became carefully neutral. "My father works in business," was all she'd say. "Import and export. Very boring." As the afternoon wore on, Maya found herself genuinely enjoying Sujin's company. The girl had a dry sense of humor and a way of seeing the world that was both cynical and unexpectedly romantic. When she talked about art, her whole face lit up with passion. "I should go," Sujin said eventually, glancing at her expensive watch. "I have family obligations this evening." "Of course. This was really nice," Maya said, and she meant it despite her lingering questions. As they stood to leave, Sujin hesitated, then reached out and gently touched Maya's arm. "Maya, I want you to know, I don't have many friends. Real friends, I mean. People usually want to know me for the wrong reasons. But you don't seem to want anything from me except conversation and maybe friendship." There was something vulnerable in her voice that made Maya's chest tighten. "That's all I want. I don't need anything complicated in my life." Sujin's smile was sad and knowing. Sometimes complicated finds us whether we want it or not. They parted ways outside the cafe, and Maya watched Sujin disappear into the evening crowd. She felt oddly hollow, like something important had just walked out of her life, even though they'd only just met. Over the next few weeks, Maya and Sujin began spending more time together. They met for coffee, visited art galleries, and sometimes just walked around Seoul's quieter neighborhoods talking about life and dreams. Sujin was always punctual, always dressed impeccably, and always seemed to have interesting insights about the world around them. Maya learned that Sujin spoke Mandarin, English, and Korean with native fluency. She'd lived in several countries and had been educated privately. Her knowledge of art history was extensive, and she could discuss everything from classical Korean pottery to contemporary installation art with equal expertise. But there were still mysteries. Sujin never invited Maya to her home, always meeting at neutral locations. She carried an expensive phone that seemed to ring constantly with calls she'd excuse herself to answer in hushed, serious tones. And sometimes, when they were out together, Maya noticed the same black cars parked nearby, the same serious-looking men in suits keeping a discreet distance. "Do you ever feel like you're being watched?" Maya asked one afternoon as they browsed paintings at a small gallery in Insadong. Sujin's hand stilled on the gallery brochure she'd been reading. "What makes you ask that?" "I don't know. Sometimes I notice the same cars, the same people. Maybe I'm being paranoid." "In a city this size, you see the same things repeatedly," Sujin said carefully. "But it's good to trust your instincts about safety." The way she said it made Maya think Sujin knew more about safety than most college students should. But before she could ask more questions, Sujin had moved on to discuss the paintings they were viewing, effortlessly steering the conversation away from anything personal or potentially revealing. Despite the mysteries surrounding her new friend, Maya found herself looking forward to their meetings more and more. Sujin brought an excitement to her previously quiet life, a sense that interesting things were possible. When they talked, Maya felt understood in a way she hadn't experienced since moving to Seoul. But late at night, alone in her apartment, Maya sometimes wondered what she was getting herself into. Sujin was clearly from a different world, a world of expensive clothes, private cars, and secrets. Maya's instincts told her that normal college students didn't live like that, didn't carry themselves with that kind of controlled alertness. The question was whether she was brave enough to find out what Sujin's real world looked like, or if she should protect herself by keeping their friendship at a safe, surface level. Maya stared at the Seoul skyline through her small window, not knowing that the choice was about to be taken out of her hands entirely. The change came on a rainy Thursday evening in October. Maya was in her apartment, working on a painting of the Han River, when her phone buzzed with a text from Sujin. "Can you meet me tonight? It's urgent. Corner of Myeongdong and Ulji-ro, 9 p.m. Please come alone." Maya stared at the message, her paintbrush hovering over the canvas. In all their weeks of friendship, Sujin had never sounded desperate. She was always composed, always in control. The urgency in this simple text made Maya's stomach twist with worry. She arrived at the meeting spot 15 minutes early, standing under a streetlight in the drizzling rain. The area was busy despite the weather, with people hurrying past under umbrellas, their faces lit by neon signs from shops and restaurants. Maya scanned the crowd nervously, wondering what kind of emergency would bring Sujin to such a public place. When Sujin appeared out of the crowd, Maya barely recognized her. Gone was the perfectly styled hair and expensive clothes. Instead, she wore a simple black hoodie with the hood pulled up, jeans, and sneakers. Her face was pale, and her eyes kept darting around as if she expected someone to jump out of the shadows. "Thank you for coming," Soo-jin said, taking Maya's arm and steering her toward a narrow alley between two buildings. "We need to talk somewhere private." "Soo-jin, you're scaring me. What's going on?" They stopped in the relative shelter of the alley, and Soo-jin turned to face Maya. In the dim light, Maya could see that her friend's hands were shaking. "I need to tell you something, and after I do, you might never want to see me again." Soo-jin's voice was barely above a whisper. "But I can't keep lying to you anymore." Maya's heart was pounding, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." Soo-jin took a deep breath, and when she spoke, the words came out in a rush. "My real name is Lee Soo-jin, but not the Lee family you'd find in any normal records. My father is Lee Dong-wook. He's the head of one of Seoul's most powerful crime families. Maya, I'm the daughter of a mafia boss." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She stepped back, her mind reeling as everything suddenly made sense. The expensive clothes, the private cars, the bodyguards she'd been glimpsing, Soo-jin's careful way of never revealing personal information. "You're... what?" Maya's voice came out as a croak. "The Yakuza, the Korean mob, whatever you want to call it. My father controls territory all across Seoul and has connections throughout East Asia. The import-export business I mentioned? It's real, but it's not legal." Soo-jin's eyes were desperate as she watched Maya's reaction. "I've grown up in this world, but I never wanted any part of it. Art school was supposed to be my escape, my chance at a normal life." Maya felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. "The men in suits, the cars, they were watching me because of you. They watch everyone who gets close to me. It's for protection, but also for information. My father needs to know who I'm associating with, whether they're threats or potential leverage against our family." "Leverage?" The word came out sharper than Maya intended. Soo-jin flinched. "In my father's world, relationships are weapons. If someone wants to hurt him, they might try to hurt the people I care about. And if he wants to control me, he might threaten the people I care about." The implications of this crashed over Maya like a cold wave. She thought about all their coffee dates, their walks through the city, their long conversations about art and life. Had it all been fake? Had she been naive to think someone like Soo-jin could genuinely want to be her friend? "So this whole time, your friendship with me, was I just some kind of cover story for your normal college girl act?" "No." Soo-jin grabbed Maya's hands, her grip desperate. "That's what I'm trying to tell you. It started that way. My father enrolled me in art school as part of my education. He believes in knowing about culture and refinement. I was supposed to keep a low profile, make a few casual acquaintances, and report back about anything useful I learned." Maya tried to pull her hands away, but Soo-jin held on tighter. "But then I met you, and you were nothing like what I expected. You saw me, really saw me, not as Lee Dong-wook's daughter or as someone who could be useful to you. You just wanted to talk about paintings and share coffee and complain about Professor Kim's impossible assignments. For the first time in my life, I felt like a normal person." Maya could hear the sincerity in Soo-jin's voice, but her whole world felt like it was crumbling. "Why are you telling me this now? What's changed?" Soo-jin's face went even paler. "Because my father knows about you now, and he's very interested. Too interested. He's been investigating you, your family, your background. He knows you're close to me, and he's starting to see you as either a weakness he can exploit or an asset he can use." "What does that mean?" "It means you're not safe anymore. My father doesn't believe in leaving loose ends, and he doesn't trust anyone who gets close to his family. He's going to want to meet you, to evaluate whether you're loyal to me and, by extension, to him." Maya felt sick. "And if he decides I'm not?" Soo-jin's silence was answer enough. "I have to go." Maya said, backing away from her friend. This is insane. I'm just an art student. I don't want anything to do with crime families and danger. Maya, please listen to me. If you disappear now, if you suddenly stop being my friend, my father will see that as suspicious. He'll think you know something that makes you a threat. Your safest option right now is to let me help you navigate this. My safest option is to stay away from you. Maya's voice was getting louder, panic making her lose control. You should have told me this from the beginning. You should have given me a choice about whether I wanted to get involved with this. You're right, Sujin said quietly. I was selfish. I wanted to have one real friendship in my life, and I convinced myself I could keep you separate from my family's business. But I was wrong, and now I need to keep you safe. Maya stared at this girl who had become so important to her, trying to reconcile the friend she'd known with this revelation about organized crime and danger. Part of her wanted to run and never look back. But another part, a part that scared her, was curious about this hidden world, about what Sujin's real life looked like. What happens now? Maya asked. My father wants to meet you. Tomorrow night there's a gathering at our family compound. It's supposed to be a social event. Art appreciation, he calls it. He wants to see how you interact with our world, how you handle yourself around his people. And if I refuse? Sujin's expression was grim. Then he'll assume you're a threat, and threats to the Lee family don't stay threats for long. Maya felt trapped between two impossible choices. Get deeper into a dangerous world she knew nothing about, or risk becoming a target of people who clearly didn't hesitate to eliminate problems. I need time to think, she said. We don't have time. If you're going to do this, you need to be prepared. You need to understand how to behave, what to say, what not to say. These people can smell fear and inexperience from across the room. Maya laughed bitterly. So now you're going to give me a crash course in criminal etiquette? I'm going to try to keep you alive, Sujin said sharply. Because whether you believe it or not, you matter to me. You're the first person who ever made me feel like I could be someone other than Lee Dongwook's daughter. The rain was getting heavier, and Maya realized they'd been standing in the alley for almost an hour. Her clothes were soaked and she was shivering, though whether from cold or fear she couldn't tell. If I do this, if I meet your father, what then? Do I become part of your world permanently? Do I have to pretend to be someone I'm not for the rest of my life? I don't know, Sujin admitted. I've never brought someone into my father's world before. I don't know what he'll decide about you, but I promise you this. I'll do everything in my power to protect you and to find a way for both of us to get out of this life eventually. Maya studied Sujin's face in the dim alley light. Despite everything, the lies, the danger, the impossible situation, she could see genuine care in her friend's eyes. Sujin was risking something by telling her the truth, by trying to prepare her instead of just cutting contact and letting Maya disappear into her normal life. Okay, Maya said finally. Tell me what I need to know. Relief flooded Sujin's features. Thank you. I know this is asking everything of you. They spent the next 2 hours in a 24-hour coffee shop, with Sujin explaining the basics of her father's organization. The Lee family controlled several legitimate businesses, restaurants, construction companies, import-export operations, but their real power came from less legal activities. Protection services for business owners, loan operations, information brokering, and what Sujin delicately called conflict resolution. The important thing tomorrow night is to be respectful, but not servile, Sujin explained. My father respects strength, but he destroys people who challenge his authority. You need to walk the line between showing you're not afraid and showing you're not a threat. How exactly do I do that? Be yourself, mostly. You have a natural dignity that will serve you well. Don't volunteer information, but answer questions honestly when asked. Show interest in the art and culture he'll probably display, but don't pretend to knowledge you don't have. And whatever you do, don't ask questions about the business. Maya's head was spinning with instructions and warnings. She kept thinking this felt like preparing for a role in a movie rather than her real life. Sujin, can I ask you something? In all of this, with your father's world and his expectations, what do you actually want? If you could choose any life, what would it look like? Sujin was quiet for a long moment, staring into her coffee cup. I want to open a small art gallery someday. Somewhere quiet, maybe by the ocean. I want to help unknown artists show their work and connect with people who understand what they're trying to say. I want to choose my own friends based on whether I enjoy their company, not whether they're useful to my family's interests. She looked up at Maya. I want to be able to care about someone without putting them in danger. The sadness in her voice made Maya's chest ache. She was beginning to understand that Sujin was as much a prisoner of this life as Maya was becoming. We'll figure this out, Maya said, though she had no idea how. After tomorrow, after I meet your father, we'll find a way to handle this situation. Sujin nodded, but Maya could see in her eyes that she wasn't optimistic about their chances of escaping her father's world unscathed. As they prepared to leave the coffee shop, Sujin handed Maya a small box. Wear this tomorrow night. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a small pendant, a tiny lotus flower beautifully crafted. It's beautiful, but I can't accept something this expensive. It's not expensive. It's protective. That pendant contains a small tracking device. If something goes wrong tomorrow night, I'll be able to find you. Maya stared at the necklace, the reality of her situation hitting her again. She was about to walk into a world where people needed tracking devices to ensure their safety. Sujin, what have we gotten ourselves into? I don't know yet, but I promise you, we'll get through it together. As Maya walked home through the rain-soaked streets of Seoul, the silver necklace felt heavy in her pocket. Tomorrow night, her quiet life as an art student would officially end, and whatever came next would depend on her ability to navigate a world she'd only seen in movies. She thought about calling her parents, about booking a flight home to America, about simply disappearing and hoping the Lee family would forget she existed. But she knew it was too late for those options now. She'd chosen to trust Sujin, and that choice had consequences. Maya climbed the stairs to her small apartment and looked at her paintings lining the walls, all those careful studies of Seoul's buildings and people, capturing a city she thought she understood. Tomorrow, she would discover there was another Seoul hidden beneath the surface, a world of power and danger, where art students from small American towns were very much out of their depth. The Lee family compound sat behind high walls in one of Seoul's most expensive neighborhoods, looking like a traditional Korean palace that had been updated with modern security. Maya arrived by taxi, her hands trembling as she paid the driver. She wore a simple black dress Sujin had approved, the silver lotus necklace hidden beneath the neckline, and carried a small purse containing nothing but her identification and phone. Two men in dark suits stood at the gate, their eyes scanning Maya professionally as she approached. One of them spoke into a small device, and after a moment, the heavy gates swung open silently. "Miss Chen," one of the men said in accented English, "please follow me." Maya walked up a stone path lined with perfectly manicured gardens, trying to calm her racing heart. The main house was larger than she'd expected, a blend of traditional Korean architecture and modern luxury that spoke of both cultural pride and serious money. Soft light glowed from windows, and she could hear the murmur of conversation and classical music drifting from inside. The front door opened before she reached it, and Sujin stepped out. She was transformed again, dressed in an elegant burgundy silk dress that probably cost more than Maya's tuition, her hair styled perfectly, and her makeup flawless. but Maya could see the tension around her eyes. "You came," Sujin said softly, relief evident in her voice. "I said I would." Maya tried to sound braver than she felt. "Remember what we talked about. Be polite, be yourself, and don't ask questions about business. My father will probably want to speak with you privately at some point during the evening." They walked inside together, and Maya felt like she'd stepped into a different world. The entrance hall was stunning, with traditional Korean art hanging alongside contemporary pieces Maya recognized from famous galleries. The floors were polished marble, and fresh flowers arranged in expensive vases filled the air with subtle fragrance. "The guests tonight are a mix of legitimate business people and family associates," Sujin murmured as they walked toward the sound of conversation. "Some will know exactly what my father does. Others will have suspicions, but prefer not to ask questions." They entered a large reception room where about 30 people mingled, holding crystal glasses and speaking in low, cultured tones. Maya was surprised by how normal everything looked. She'd expected something more obviously criminal, but this looked like any upscale social gathering she might see in a movie. "Sujina!" A deep voice cut through the conversation, and Maya felt the room's attention shift. A man approached them from across the room, and Maya knew immediately this was Lee Dong-wook. He was smaller than she'd expected, but carried himself with unmistakable authority. His suit was perfectly tailored, his gray hair styled immaculately, and his dark eyes missed nothing. When he smiled, it was pleasant but didn't reach his eyes. "Father, this is Maya Chen, the artist I mentioned." Sujin's voice was carefully respectful. Lee Dong-wook studied Maya for a long moment, and she felt like she was being evaluated by a machine designed to identify threats and opportunities. She forced herself to stand straight and meet his gaze. "Miss Chen, my daughter speaks very highly of your artistic talents." His English was perfect, with just a trace of accent. "Welcome to my home. Thank you for inviting me, Mr. Lee. Your art collection is incredible. You appreciate art, then? Come, let me show you some of my favorite pieces." He gestured for Maya to walk with him, and she felt Sujin fall into step slightly behind them. Other guests moved out of their way respectfully, and Maya realized that despite the pleasant atmosphere, everyone here understood exactly who held power in this room. Lee Dong-wook led her to a wall displaying several traditional Korean paintings alongside modern pieces. He spoke knowledgeably about the artists and techniques, asking Maya thoughtful questions about her own work and training. For several minutes, Maya almost forgot why she was nervous. This felt like a normal conversation with a cultured art collector. "Sujin tells me you're from America originally. What brought you to Seoul?" "A scholarship opportunity, and I'd always been interested in Korean culture. Art is universal, but every culture has its own way of seeing the world." "Indeed. And what do you see when you look at Seoul?" Maya considered the question carefully. "I see a city that honors its past while embracing its future. There's beauty in the contrast between ancient traditions and modern innovation. But I also see loneliness sometimes, especially late at night when the neon lights reflect off empty streets." Something shifted in Lee Dong-wook's expression. "You see loneliness? Interesting. Most foreigners only see the excitement and energy. Maybe that's because I'm often alone myself. It makes you more aware of isolation in others." He nodded thoughtfully, then guided her toward another section of the room, where several men in expensive suits were engaged in quiet conversation. Maya noticed how they straightened when Lee Dong-wook approached, how their attention focused completely on him, even though he'd said nothing yet. "Gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Miss Chen, a talented artist and friend of my daughter's." The introductions were polite but formal, and Maya could feel herself being assessed by each man she met. Their questions were casual: where she was from, what she studied, how she liked Seoul. but she sensed deeper currents beneath the surface. These weren't random small-talk questions. They were gathering information. After an hour of circulating through the gathering, Lee Dong-wook appeared at Maya's elbow again. "Miss Chen, would you join me in my study? I have something I'd like to show you." Maya glanced at Soo-jin, who gave her an almost imperceptible nod. This was the moment Soo-jin had warned her about, the private conversation that would determine Maya's fate. The study was smaller than the reception room, but equally impressive, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a large desk positioned to command a view of both the garden and the room's entrance. Lee Dong-wook gestured for Maya to sit in a leather chair across from his desk. "Tea?" he offered, pouring himself a cup from a service that had been waiting. "Thank you." Maya accepted the delicate cup, grateful to have something to do with her hands. "You must be wondering why I wanted to speak with you privately. I assumed you wanted to know more about my friendship with Soo-jin." Lee Dong-wook smiled, and this time it seemed genuinely amused. "Direct. I appreciate that. Yes, I'm interested in your relationship with my daughter. Soo-jin has had many acquaintances over the years, but very few genuine friendships. She speaks of you differently than she speaks of others. She's been a good friend to me. We share similar interests in art and literature. But you must have noticed that Soo-jin's life is not typical for a university student." Maya chose her words carefully. "I've noticed that she comes from a family with means, and that she's very private about personal matters. And you've never been curious about the nature of my business? About why my daughter might need to be careful? About her associations?" This was the test, Maya realized. How she answered this question would determine whether Lee Dong-wook saw her as innocent, complicit, or dangerous. "I respect Soo-jin's privacy. If she wanted me to know more about her family's business, she would tell me. My friendship with her isn't based on curiosity about her background." Lee Dong-wook studied her for a long moment, sipping his tea thoughtfully. "What would you say if I told you that my business sometimes requires difficult decisions? That protecting my family and my interests occasionally puts me at odds with conventional morality?" Maya felt like she was walking on thin ice. "I would say that everyone has to live with the consequences of their choices, and that it's not my place to judge situations I don't understand." "Very diplomatic. But let me be more direct, Miss Chen. I know that Soo-jin has told you something about the true nature of my work. I know this because my daughter has never been good at hiding her emotions. And tonight she's been watching you with the intensity of someone who's afraid for your safety." Maya's heart jumped, but she tried to keep her expression neutral. "What exactly are you asking me?" "I'm asking whether you can be trusted. Whether your friendship with my daughter is genuine enough that you would protect her interests, even when doing so might be uncomfortable for you. I care about Soo-jin very much. I would never do anything to hurt her. But would you do something to help her, even if it meant compromising your own principles or putting yourself at risk?" Maya stared into her teacup, realizing that her answer would shape not just her own future but possibly Soo-jin's as well. She thought about her friend's vulnerability the night before, the way Soo-jin had risked everything to tell Maya the truth instead of just cutting contact and keeping her safe through distance. "Yes," she said quietly. "I would help her." Lee Dong-wook leaned back in his chair, and Maya couldn't read his expression. "Even if helping her meant becoming involved in activities that your government would consider illegal?" The question hung in the air like a trap. Maya understood now that this wasn't just about her friendship with Soo-jin. Lee Dong-wook was evaluating whether she could be useful to him, whether her connection to his daughter could be leveraged for his own purposes. "I think," Maya said carefully, "that friendship sometimes requires us to step outside our comfort zones. but I would need to understand exactly what was being asked of me before I could commit to anything specific. Lee Dong-wook smiled, and this time it was the expression of a man who'd gotten the answer he wanted. Excellent. You're more intelligent than most of the people who seek to befriend my daughter for their own gain. I'm not seeking to gain anything from Soo-jin except her friendship. I believe you. But whether you intended it or not, Miss Chen, your friendship with my daughter has value beyond personal affection. You're an American citizen with a clean background and legitimate reasons to be in Seoul. You're also someone Soo-jin trusts completely, which means she would listen to advice from you that she might reject from others. Maya felt cold dread settling in her stomach. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that sometimes I might need to communicate with my daughter through channels that appear completely innocent. Sometimes I might need someone with your background and credentials to travel or carry messages, or simply be present in situations where Soo-jin's direct involvement would attract unwanted attention. You want me to spy on your own daughter? I want you to help me protect her. Soo-jin has romantic notions about escaping from our family's world, but that's not possible. The best I can do is ensure she makes choices that keep her safe. Sometimes that requires guidance from people she trusts. Maya understood now why Soo-jin had looked so hopeless when discussing their chances of escaping this life. Her father wasn't just a crime boss. He was a master manipulator who turned even love and friendship into tools for control. And if I refuse? Lee Dong-wook's expression didn't change, but somehow the air in the room felt colder. I don't think you will refuse, Miss Chen, because you're intelligent enough to understand that refusing would mean losing Soo-jin's friendship entirely. I would have to relocate her for her own safety, perhaps abroad for an extended period. Her education would continue, but her current life, including all current relationships, would end immediately. Maya felt trapped between impossible choices again, but now she understood the game more clearly. Lee Dong-wook had deliberately allowed her relationship with Soo-jin to develop so that he could use it as leverage when needed. He'd been patient, letting Maya become genuinely attached to his daughter, making the threat of separation painful enough to ensure compliance. What exactly would you need me to do? For now, simply continue being Soo-jin's friend. Encourage her to focus on her art studies rather than unrealistic plans about independence. If she discusses any concerns about family business or safety, let me know. And occasionally, I may ask you to accompany her to social events or help convince her to attend gatherings she might otherwise avoid. It sounded reasonable on the surface, but Maya could see the deeper implications. She was being recruited as an informant against her own friend, a way for Lee Dong-wook to monitor and control Soo-jin's thoughts and activities. I need time to think about this. Of course, but not too much time. Soo-jin is waiting for you to return to the party, and she'll be watching your face very carefully to determine how this conversation went. What you tell her tonight will set the tone for your relationship going forward. Maya stood to leave, her legs feeling unsteady. At the study door, Lee Dong-wook spoke again. Miss Chen, I hope you understand that everything I do is motivated by love for my daughter and concern for her well-being. This world she wants to escape from is the only world that can truly protect her. Your friendship could help her accept that reality with less pain. Maya rejoined the party, finding Soo-jin near the window overlooking the garden. Her friend's eyes searched her face desperately. How did it go? Soo-jin whispered. Maya looked around the elegant room full of cultured criminals and corrupt businessmen, then at Soo-jin's beautiful, hopeful face. She thought about Lee Dong-wook's offer and threats, about the impossible position she'd been maneuvered into, about the choice between betraying her friend or losing her entirely. We need to talk, Maya said quietly, but not here. They spent the rest of the evening making polite conversation with other guests, but Maya felt like she was performing in a play where she didn't know her lines. Every interaction felt loaded with hidden meaning. Every smile felt false. When they finally left the compound several hours later, Soo-jin directed their taxi to drive aimlessly through Seoul's quiet, late-night streets. "Tell me what he said." Maya looked at her friend's anxious face and made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "He wants me to spy on you for him, to report on your activities and help him control your choices." Maya watched Soo-jin's face crumple with pain and understanding. "But I'm not going to do that." "Maya, you don't understand what refusing him means." "I understand perfectly. He'll separate us to protect you from my bad influence. But Soo-jin, what he's offering isn't friendship. It's prison with prettier decorations." Soo-jin was quiet for a long time, staring out at the neon-lit city flowing past their window. "So what do we do now?" Maya took her friend's hand, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. "We disappear together tonight." "That's impossible. He'll find us." "Maybe. But I'd rather spend whatever time we have as real friends running from your father than spend years as fake friends serving his purposes." Soo-jin squeezed Maya's hand, tears streaming down her face. "You don't know what you're giving up for me." "I'm not giving up anything important. I'm choosing what matters most." As their taxi drove through Seoul's sleeping streets, Maya realized that her quiet life as an art student was officially over. But looking at Soo-jin's face, seeing hope and determination replacing resignation and despair, Maya knew she'd made the only choice she could live with. Tomorrow, they would figure out how to disappear from Lee Dong-wook's reach. Tonight, they were two friends who had found something worth risking everything to protect, each other's freedom to choose their own paths, no matter how dangerous that choice might be. The city lights blurred past the taxi windows like stars falling toward an uncertain dawn, and Maya held tight to Soo-jin's hand, ready to face whatever consequences their defiance would bring.